We all know about Alexander the Great's unstoppable army, right? But what if I told you his greatest weapon wasn't a spear, but a story? That's what we're digging into today, how Alexander used religion to conquer not just lands, but the hearts and minds of the people in them.
So think about it. How do you rule the world? I mean, really rule it. We're talking about a massive empire, stretching all the way from Greece to India, filled with totally different cultures, different gods. How do you hold that all together? It's the question for any empire, really.
Alexander's real genius? It wasn't just military tactics. It was storytelling. See, he understood something crucial. An army can win you land, but it can't win you loyalty. For that, you need a story, a unifying myth. And he was a master at using religion as a political tool to do just that. He turned himself from this foreign invader into a rightful king, a hero, and yeah, even a god to the very people he conquered.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. His first and arguably most important audience, his own people, the Greeks. Before he could convince anyone else he was a god, he first had to prove he was one of them, a true heir to their greatest heroes.
So before he even sets foot in Asia, he goes on this, well, you could call it a propaganda tour. This was no vacation. This was brand management, 300s BC style. Every single stop, Delphi, Troy, Gordium, was strategically chosen to wrap him up in the legends and prophecies of Greece. And this first stop at Delphi, this is just pure audacity. So get this, Alexander shows up on a day when it's literally forbidden to give out prophecies. The priestess, the oracle, tells him no. Does he take no for an answer? Of course not. Plutarch says he basically drags her to the shrine, and she, completely fed up, just shouts at him, "You are invincible, my son." And for Alexander, that's it. Prophecy delivered. He basically manufactured his own divine seal of approval. Incredible.
All right, next up, Troy. This is another genius move. He goes right to the tomb of Achilles, the greatest Greek warrior of all time, right? And he makes a huge public show of honoring him. The message he's sending to the entire Greek world is crystal clear. I'm the next Achilles. This isn't just some Macedonian invasion of Persia. This is the sequel to the Trojan War. So, he's got the Greeks on board. He's the heir to the heroes. But now he faces a totally new challenge, Egypt. This is an ancient land with ancient gods, where the pharaohs themselves are divine. Just being a Greek hero, that's not going to cut it here. To rule Egypt, Alexander knew he had to become one of their gods.
And how does he do it? He goes on this incredibly dangerous trick, deep into the desert, to this legendary oracle at the Siwa Oasis. What happened next was a total game changer. The high priest comes out to meet him, and he doesn't greet him as some foreign invader. No, our sources say he welcomed him as the son of their most powerful god, Ammon. And just like that, it was official. Alexander was divine.
Now this is where his strategy gets just brilliant. You see, for the Greeks, the Egyptian god Ammon was basically the same as their own head honcho Zeus. So when Alexander gets named son of Ammon, he pulls off this incredible 2-for-1 deal. For the Egyptians, he's now their legitimate god-sent pharaoh, and for the Greeks, well, he's now the son of Zeus himself. It's an absolute political masterstroke.
Okay, so he's a hero to the Greeks, a god to the Egyptians, but as he marches deeper into the heart of the Persian Empire, the story has to change again. The whole Greek hero getting revenge angle, that served its purpose. Now, to actually rule these new Persian subjects, he needs a new title, the Great, unifying king of Asia.
And the burning of Persepolis, the Persian capital, this is such a perfect example of this pivot. On the one hand, for his Greek troops, this was it. This was the ultimate payback for the Persian invasions of Greece. But what's really interesting is that our main sources, guys like Arrian and Curtius, say that Alexander later regretted it. And why would he? Well, it's pretty hard to rule over people when you've just torched their entire cultural heritage. This was kind of the last gasp of Alexander the Greek Avenger. And then you see this complete 180. It's pretty dramatic. A little while later, he makes a very public visit to the tomb of Cyrus the Great, the guy who founded the Persian Empire in the first place, the very empire he just finished conquering.
What he does next, according to the historian Arrian, is just masterful political theater. He gets to the tomb and finds it's been broken into and looted. He puts on this big show of being horrified and angry. He immediately orders his own men to fix it, and he punishes the local officials responsible. The message he's sending to the Persian people couldn't be clearer. I'm not here to erase your past. I'm here to honor it. I am the true successor to your greatest king. He's literally co-opting their history to lock down his own future.
So we've seen him be a Greek hero, an Egyptian god, a Persian king. He's crafted all these different divine identities for all these different audiences. But all this brilliant PR work brings us to the biggest question of all.
Yeah, did Alexander actually believe he was a god? I mean, after all the oracles, all the titles, all the people bowing down to him, what was really going on inside his head? Was he just a brilliant, cynical politician, or did he start to believe his own hype?
Plutarch gives us this one really fascinating clue. The story goes that Alexander gets wounded by an arrow in battle. And as he's looking at the wound, he turns to his friends and says something like, "See this? This is blood, my friends, not ichor." And ichor was supposed to be this golden stuff that flowed in the veins of the gods. It's this incredible moment of, well, realism. It kind of suggests that when it came right down to it, he knew he was mortal.
And honestly, the ancient historians who wrote about him, they pretty much agree. Plutarch is really blunt about it. He says Alexander used beliefs in his divinity to enslave others. Ouch. Arrian is just as skeptical. He calls the whole thing a mere device to make himself look more important. For them, this was never about real belief. It was all politics. It was statecraft.
But maybe the single best piece of evidence, the perfect summary of his entire strategy, isn't found in any text. It's actually carved in stone.
Take a look at the famous Alexander sarcophagus. See the details? He's wearing a lion skin on his head. That's a direct shout-out to the Greek demigod Heracles, who he claimed as an ancestor. But then, look closer. Curled around his ear is a ram's horn. That is the can't-miss-it symbol of the Egyptian god Ammon. It's all right there. He's a Greek hero and an Egyptian god in a single portrait. That's not an accident. That is a carefully constructed, multicultural divine brand designed to appeal to everyone in his new empire.
So where does that leave us? I think the big takeaway is that Alexander's empire wasn't built on swords and spears alone. It was built on a story. It was built on myth. He didn't just conquer cities. He conquered belief systems, which brings us to one last really fascinating question to think about. Was he a cynical propagandist who was always in control, a true believer, or was he a genius who ended up becoming a prisoner of the very myth he created?